多謝晒咁多位香港嘅球迷，不論係喺
Coleman Wong'S mysterious black box makes Alexandra Eala cry after historic gold. What was inside? You are absolutely not going to believe what went down behind closed doors at the 33rd SEA Games in Bangkok. And I'm telling you right now, this is the kind of story that doesn't come around very often. If you thought the headline of the day was Alexandra Eala claiming her historic gold medal for the Philippines, ending a brutal 26-year drought in the most dominant fashion possible, you need to think again, because that performance on the court, as incredible as it was, has been completely overshadowed by what happened afterward in the locker room. The real story, the one that has sent shockwaves through the tennis world and has social media absolutely imploding, didn't involve a racket or a trophy or even a victory speech. It happened away from the flashing cameras, away from the roaring crowds, in a moment so charged with emotion and so utterly unexpected that everyone who witnessed it says the atmosphere became thick enough to cut with a knife. Coleman Wong, the ridiculously talented tennis player from Hong Kong who has been linked to Eala for what feels like forever, walked into that locker room and did something so bold, so dramatic, and so deeply personal that Alexandra Eala, the woman who had just conquered an entire nation's expectations, broke down in tears right there in front of everyone. Before we get into the absolutely wild details of what happened with that mysterious black box that has everyone talking, welcome to Champions Tennisitics, your brand new home for the tennis stories that matter, the drama that unfolds when the cameras stop rolling, and the breaking news that the mainstream outlets are either too scared or too boring to cover properly. If you're the kind of person who loves tennis but also lives for the backstories, the relationships, the raw human moments that make this sport more than just forehands and backhands, then you need to subscribe to this channel right now because we're just getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming next. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's dive into this absolutely insane story together. Let's paint the picture properly because context is absolutely everything when it comes to understanding why this moment hit so hard. It's December 2025, and we're in Bangkok, Thailand, where the 33rd Southeast Asian Games are taking place. The energy in the stadium has been building all week, but on this particular day, it's reached fever pitch. Alexandra Eala, representing the Philippines with every ounce of pride and determination she possesses, has just delivered the performance of her career in the women's singles final. She didn't just win, she absolutely dismantled Thailand's home favorite Maninkaya Sawanki with a ruthless, clinical display of tennis that left no doubt about who the best player in Southeast Asia is right now. The final score was a devastating 6-1, 6-2, and it wasn't even that close. Eala, currently ranked 53rd in the world, played like someone possessed, someone who knew that history was watching and refused to blink under the pressure. This gold medal meant everything, not just to her, but to an entire nation that had been waiting since 1999 to see their flag raised for tennis singles gold at the SEA Games. The emotion was already running high. Eala had tears streaming down her face during the medal ceremony, the Philippine national anthem echoing through the stadium. And when she finally made it back to the locker room, she was riding a wave of exhaustion, relief, and pure joy that only comes from achieving something truly monumental. The locker room itself was packed with people. Her teammates were there, coaches were congratulating her, staff members were taking photos, and the general vibe was absolute chaos in the best possible way. This was celebration mode, the kind of atmosphere where champagne bottles are getting opened and everyone's talking over each other because the adrenaline is still pumping and nobody can quite believe what just happened. Eala was probably still trying to process it all, sitting down, catching her breath, maybe checking her phone to see the flood of messages pouring in from around the world. And then, suddenly, everything changed in an instant. The door to the locker room opened, and the noise didn't just die down gradually. It was cut off like someone had flipped a switch. Walking through that door, with an expression on his face that witnesses described as intense and completely focused, was Coleman Wong. Now, if you don't know who Coleman Wong is, or why his appearance in that locker room at that exact moment is such a massive deal, let me fill you in quickly, because this is where the story gets really juicy. Coleman Wong is a 21-year-old tennis player from Hong Kong who has had an absolutely breakthrough year in 2025, smashing into the ATP Top 100 and becoming the first player from Hong Kong to achieve that ranking in the modern era of professional tennis. But his connection to Alexandra Eala goes way deeper than just being fellow Asian tennis players on the rise. These two grew up together at the legendary Rafa and Nadal Academy in Mallorca, Spain. They trained side by side for years. They've been mixed doubles partners. They've supported each other through injuries and losses and victories. And they've been the subject of the most persistent and intense dating rumors in Asian tennis for as long as anyone can remember. Fans have been obsessively tracking their every interaction on social media, analyzing Instagram comments, dissecting photos, and collectively shipping them as a couple under the name Eala Wong for years now. But here's where things got complicated and why Coleman's appearance in Bangkok was so loaded with unspoken tension. Just 2 months ago, back in October, fans noticed something alarming. Alexandra Eala and Coleman Wong had unfollowed each other on Instagram. In the world of young athletes and social media, that's not just a casual decision, that's a statement. When you unfollow someone you've been publicly close to for years, especially someone you've been romantically linked with whether you've confirmed it or not, people notice and people talk. The tennis community went absolutely wild with speculation. Had they broken up? Was there a fight? Did someone betray someone's trust? The theories were endless, and the fact that neither of them addressed it publicly only added fuel to the fire. For 2 months, there was radio silence between them online, and fans were left to wonder if one of tennis's most beloved potential couples had crashed and burned. So when Coleman Wong walked into that locker room in Bangkok, just hours after Alex Eala had achieved the biggest win of her career, with every single person in that room aware of the social media drama that had been playing out, nobody had any idea what was about to happen. Was he there to congratulate her as a friend? Was he there to cause a scene? Was this going to be awkward or emotional or confrontational? What happened next has been described by multiple people who were present as one of the most powerful and emotionally charged moments they've ever witnessed in sports. Coleman didn't smile when he walked in. He didn't wave at the coaches or acknowledge anyone else in the room. His eyes were locked on Alexandra from the moment he stepped through that door, and he walked straight toward her with the kind of purpose that makes everyone else instinctively step back and give space. In his hands, he was carrying something that immediately caught everyone's attention because it was so out of place in a sweaty, crowded locker room full of sports equipment and celebration. It was an elegant, velvet-covered black box, the kind of box that screams luxury and intention, the kind of box that you don't just casually carry around unless what's inside is deeply meaningful and probably expensive. This wasn't a gift bag from a sponsor or a random token of congratulations. This was personal, and everyone in that room knew it the second they saw it. According to multiple sources who were present and have since talked about what went down, the atmosphere in that locker room shifted so dramatically that it felt like the oxygen had been sucked out of the space. The celebration noise, the chatter, the laughter, all of it just stopped dead. You could have heard a pin drop, and people say the silence stretched on for what felt like 30 seconds, but was probably closer to 10, which is an eternity when you're standing in a room full of people all holding their breath and watching two people stare at each other with the weight of months of unspoken tension hanging between them. Alexandra, who had just been crying tears of victory and national pride, went completely still. She was looking at Coleman with an expression that witnesses described as confused, guarded, maybe even a little bit scared because she had no idea what was coming, and given their recent history of unfollowing each other and the apparent distance between them, this could have gone in any direction. Coleman stopped directly in front of her, close enough that this was undeniably an intimate moment and not a casual public gesture. He didn't launch into a long explanation or try to play to the crowd or make this about anyone other than the two of them. Instead, he simply held out that black velvet box toward her, and he spoke just 3 sentences. But those 3 sentences have now been repeated and analyzed and quoted across every tennis forum and social media platform in existence. He said, and people who heard it swear these were his exact words, "Eala, this is for you. Open it." His voice was steady, controlled, but there was something underneath it that everyone picked up on, a tremor of raw emotion, a vulnerability that suggested this moment mattered to him in a way that went far beyond a simple congratulatory gift. He wasn't asking her to open the box as a casual favor. The way people describe it, he was almost pleading with her, like everything he wanted to say was contained in whatever was inside that box, and he needed her to understand it. Alexandra hesitated, and you could see the internal struggle playing out on her face. Her hands, which had just wielded a tennis racket with absolute precision and power for 2 straight sets, were visibly shaking as she reached out to take the box from him. The room was still completely silent. Nobody was moving. Nobody was breathing loudly. Everyone was just frozen in place watching this unfold like they were witnessing something that should have been private but was happening right in front of them anyway. She lifted the lid of the black box slowly, and the moment she saw what was inside, everything changed in an instant. Alexandra Eala burst into tears. Not polite tears, not the kind of crying you do when you're touched by a sweet gesture and you dab at your eyes with a tissue. These were full-body, gut-wrenching, uncontrollable sobs that came from somewhere deep inside her. She dropped the box onto the bench beside her like she couldn't hold it anymore because her hands were shaking too badly. And then she threw her arms around Coleman Wong and buried her face in his neck and held on like her life depended on it. Witnesses say her knuckles went white from how tightly she was gripping him, and she refused to let go for what felt like several minutes. This wasn't a polite hug between friends or even a romantic embrace between a couple that's comfortable with each other. This was desperate and raw and full of months of pent-up emotion that was finally being released all at once. Coleman, this guy who had walked into the room looking like he was on a mission and prepared for any outcome, just melted the second she grabbed him. He wrapped his arms around her, pulled her in close, rested his chin on top of her head, and closed his eyes like he was finally able to breathe properly for the first time in months. They stood there, completely wrapped up in each other, in the middle of a crowded locker room full of teammates and coaches and staff, and nobody said a word. Nobody pulled out their phone to film it, even though this would have been the viral moment of the year. Nobody interrupted or made a joke to break the tension. People actually looked away because it felt like they were intruding on something intensely private, like they were witnessing a moment that should have happened behind closed doors, but was happening right there in front of everyone, because sometimes emotion doesn't wait for the right time or the right place. The million-dollar question that has absolutely everyone losing their minds right now is obviously what was inside that black box. Neither Alexandra nor Coleman has said a single word about it publicly. There have been no Instagram posts, no Twitter updates, no interviews where they've addressed what happened in that locker room. And that silence is driving the tennis world absolutely insane with speculation. The theories are flying fast and furious, and honestly, some of them are wild enough that they might actually be true because this whole situation is already so dramatic that adding an engagement ring to the mix wouldn't even be that surprising at this point. The most popular theory, the one that has the romantic faction of the tennis fanbase absolutely screaming and making elaborate PowerPoint presentations to prove their point, is that the black box contained an engagement ring. Think about it for a second. The size of the box matches perfectly with a ring box. The level of emotion from Alexandra, the way she completely broke down the second she opened it, suggests this wasn't just a nice piece of jewelry or a thoughtful memento. This was something that represented a commitment, a future, a promise that hit her right in the heart at a moment when she was already emotionally vulnerable from winning the biggest match of her career. The way Coleman held her afterward, the protective way he wrapped himself around her, the fact that he closed his eyes like he was savoring the moment, all of it points towards something deeply romantic and life-changing. Now, the counterargument here is that they're young. Alexandra is only 20 years old, and Coleman just turned 21. Is that too young to get engaged, especially when both of them are at crucial points in their professional tennis careers and probably traveling around the world for 10 months out of the year? That's why the October unfollowing was such a big deal, and why Coleman showing up in Bangkok with that black box feels like the resolution to a story that's been building for months. Whatever happened between them in October, whatever caused that public distancing on social media, it clearly wasn't the end of their story. If anything, it was just a chapter, maybe a necessary one, where they had to figure some things out separately before coming back together. The locker room moment feels like the climax of a season-long drama. The point where all the tension and uncertainty finally breaks and resolves into something clear and undeniable. This was Coleman Wong making a statement, not to the public, but to Alexandra, telling her in the most dramatic and romantic way possible that whatever else happens in their careers or their lives, she matters to him in a way that transcends everything else. And Alexandra's reaction, breaking down and holding on to him like she was afraid he might disappear if she let go, was her accepting that statement and making one of her own. As of right now, the silence from both of them on social media continues, but this time it feels different to everyone watching. It's not the cold, distant silence of October when they unfollowed each other and fans were genuinely worried that something had broken irreparably between them. This is a warm silence, a private silence, the kind of silence that suggests they're in their own bubble right now and the outside world can wait. The Champions Tennisitics team is working every possible connection we have to find out what was actually inside that mysterious black box because the suspense is killing everyone. But as of this moment, the secret is still locked up tight. Was it a diamond engagement ring that means we're about to witness the tennis wedding of the decade? Was it a meaningful piece of jewelry or a memento that symbolizes their shared journey and his commitment to her? Was it something completely unexpected that we haven't even considered? We're digging, we're asking questions, we're reaching out to anyone who was in that locker room. And the second we get confirmation about what was inside, you're going to be the first to know because we're not letting this story go until we have answers. But while we're waiting for those answers, let's take a moment to celebrate what we do know for certain. Alexandra Eala is the SEA Games champion, and she earned that gold medal through talent, determination, and absolutely ruthless execution when it mattered most. She's brought glory back to the Philippines after a 26-year wait, and that achievement stands on its own regardless of what romantic drama might be swirling around it. And Coleman Wong's, whether he walked into that locker room with a ring or an apology or a promise or all of the above, made a moment that will be talked about in tennis circles for years to come. He won something that might be even more valuable than any trophy. He won the moment. And he did it in front of witnesses who say they'll never forget the intensity and emotion of watching those two people find their way back to each other. So here's what I want to know from all of you watching this video right now. What do you think was in that black box? Are you team engagement ring, convinced that Coleman went all in and proposed right there in the locker room after the biggest win of her life? Are you team apology gift, thinking this was his way of making up for whatever went wrong between them in October and convincing her to give them another chance? Or do you have a completely different theory that we haven't even covered? Drop your thoughts in the comments below because I want to hear every single theory and opinion, no matter how wild or romantic or cynical it might be. And while you're down there in the comments section, do me a huge favor and hit that like button if you enjoyed this deep dive into the drama because it helps the algorithm show this video to more tennis fans who are probably desperate for this story right now. Most importantly, subscribe to Champions Tennisitics because we are your new home for tennis news that actually matters. The stories that have real emotion and real stakes and real human beings at the center of them instead of just match statistics and ranking updates. We're just getting started with this channel, and trust me when I tell you that we have so much more coming that you're not going to want to miss. Turn on those notifications so you're immediately alerted the second we post the follow-up to this story when we finally figure out what was in that black box. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, keep speculating, keep shipping, and keep loving this beautiful, dramatic, emotionally devastating sport that we all can't get enough of.